Good morning, all. Good morning. This is Iowa, after all. Am I not in Iowa? So I know what you're thinking. Good Lord, this woman is old. I read somewhere, maybe it was that blurb on the website, said she had a computer science degree, PhD no less. Well, how is that possible? They probably didn't have computers when she was in school. Probably sitting around on the ground beating out messages on rocks. And you would be right. I had to go back much later. In fact, so much later to get that PhD in computer science that I was not only older than all of the other graduate students, I was older than my advisor's mother. My goal at the time was to finish that PhD by 50. Finish by 50. And I just made it. I defended one day before my 50th birthday. But the punchline is, that was 27 years ago. Now, I'm not saying that so that you can feel that, oh, Linda must be some kind of genius. She went back to school even when she was really old. I'm saying that because some of you might have come in today feeling that maybe you're too old to do something that you wanted to do. You had a dream at some point and you gave it up because you thought, well, I'm too old now, I'm 45 or maybe 25. So I didn't go to an Ivy League school. Harvard wasn't knocking on my door when I was in high school. I went to ordinary state schools, and I would say I just worked hard. I was determined to do it, and so I thought I could have a chance at doing it if I was determined enough, and so can you. Because we know the world is now in very bad shape. And we need all your dreams. We need all your hopes. Don't you dare let anybody tell you that you're too old or too young or too, is Iowan a word? Or that you're too Iowan to do whatever it is that you want to do, because we need you. You are our best hope. I'm counting on you. So don't give that up. Don't give up that dream. And remember, if Linda can do it, finished by 50, you can do it too. Will you promise me? Will you promise me? Don't give that dream up, please. Doesn't it all start in Iowa next year? I want you out there. I want you out there. Indeed. And since we know if it can happen to Bernie, it could happen to me. So I might not even finish this presentation. Who knows? So I might need your help. And I'm going to make an offer that I do with all my talks, is that this is a really boring presentation. I've been giving it now for several years, and you're going to see the slides and you're going to say, why doesn't she? I have some ideas for that. So I'll be happy to give you the PowerPoint. So on this first slide is my email address. If you send me some email, I'll be happy to send you the PowerPoint, and then you can give the presentation. You can help me out by talking about things that I think are pretty important. You can change it. You can make those slides much more interesting. Maybe translate it out of Nashville Southern into Iowan. Is that, somebody needs to tell me if that's really a term. I don't no. It is really a term. Okay, how cool is that? All right, so that's what the talk is about, the power of the Agile Mindset. Don't raise your hand, just think about it. Which way do you lean? Do you think that people are born with a certain measurable intelligence? That they have what they have at birth? There's really nothing you can do to change that? Oh, of course, you can learn some new things along the way, we know that, but your basic intelligence, well, we could say fixed. That's fixed. Fixed at birth. You have it or you don't. All right, think about that. Or maybe you believe that, well, yes, of course, not everyone is going to be an Einstein. You are limited by the capabilities you had at birth, but no matter how intelligent you are, you can always get better. With hard work, with determination, you can get better. You can grow. These two mindsets have been involved with a lot of research about how people think, not only about themselves, but about others, not just about intelligence, but about any ability, golfing, sports of various kinds. Somebody has it or not. Think about the workplace. Do you label people? Oh, if you have a question about the database, you go talk to that guy over there. He's the database guru. He knows so much more. He's so smart. He knows the inside and outside of that database. And we've got each other labeled and put in a box and closed up that box, and we have fixed it. So yeah, we all do that to some extent. But what the research shows is that we have tendencies. Most of us lean one way or the other. There are some things that we believe are fixed, others where we believe in growth. We vary in those tendencies. But the research around these two mindsets is fascinating. So I'm going to tell you about one of the experiments that's been done many times. We know there's a validity hoopla right now about a lot of experimental evidence. This particular experiment has been validated. It's been repeated so many times. It's a classic. And in it, I'm going to talk about the experiments with children. The first time I gave this talk, I thought, well, nobody's really going to be too interested in it because it is primarily about children. And what I was surprised to learn is that that's exactly what we all care about. How many of you have children or grandchildren? Okay, this talk is for you. The experiment has several phases. In phase one, all of the children, all of the students, were given a really, really easy test. It was so easy that every child was able to do a good job. And at the end, somehow, and I will tell you later, somehow they put those children into two groups. One group was fixed, that is, they held the fixed mindset, and the other group was the growth mindset. And again, I'll tell you later how they did that, but now that's what we're going to do for the rest of the experiment. Phase two, they said, you've just had a really easy test. What would you like to do now? Would you like to take a really difficult test? You might not do very well, but it would be a good chance to learn something. Or would you like to take another easy test where you know you're going to do well, just like you did really well on the test that you just took? So now think about it. These children, pretty homogeneous group, they just took a test and were somehow put into two categories. Would it make a huge difference to them whether they took a difficult test or an easy test. And the answer, as you can see, was, they say this in experiments, statistically significant. Most of those growth children said, I want the difficult test. Because they're the children who believe that you get better by learning new things, that you can grow and get better. So they said, give me the chance to do something difficult. Whereas those children who were in the fixed growth mindset said, no, I want the easy test. Most of those, 80%, said, no, I want the easy test. Why would that be? Because if you believe that your capabilities, your intelligence, fixed, there's nothing you can do about it, well, then it becomes your job to look good. Because that's how other people will judge you, by saying, oh, they did really well in this particular situation, so they must be really good, they must be really smart. They want to look good. What a difference already. Phase 3, if you've ever been in a psychology experiment and they ask you what you want to do, you know that they don't care. They're all going to do what they wanted to do anyway, which is, in this case, they gave everybody a really difficult test. So there. And while they were taking the test, they said to these children, would you talk out loud? Would you tell us what you're thinking as you take this difficult test? And what they heard was amazing, because those children who were in the growth mindset group coached themselves. They said, this is a really difficult test. I better take my time. I better slow down. I better make sure I understand what the question is. If I have trouble, I'm sure I could ask the teacher. I could ask for help if I don't understand something. They encouraged themselves in facing this difficult situation. Well, what about the children in the fixed mindset group? Well, they ran up against these difficult questions and they said, this is too hard. I can't do this. Maybe I can't even finish this test. It's so difficult. Maybe I'm stupid. Do you have a little voice in your head? Do you have a little voice in your head? And when you run up against something difficult, does that little voice tell you something? Does it tell you that maybe you're stupid? Does that voice say, you're not stupid, you're smart, just slow down, take it easy, make sure you understand what you're doing. If you have questions, ask for help. What's that little voice in your head tell you? I know what my voice is. It's from my father. No matter what I did, when I came home from school with a paper that had A+ or 100 on my spelling test, he would always say, Linda, is this the best you can do? I hated that. And later on, decades later, when I saw children coming home with papers from school, and now I hear parents saying, oh, you are awesome. You're the best. You can do anything. It makes me sad. I wish my father had told me that. But then I began to be familiar with this research, And now I get down on my knees and I thank God that my father told me, is this the best you can do? Because I think that's why I'm still here today. Thank you to my father. So what are you telling your children or your grandchildren? What little voice are you planting in their head so they can play it back later? Phase 4, all the students could do one of two things. You could look at the tests of those who did better. Or you could look at the tests of those who didn't do as well. And again, what a difference. Statistically significant. Those who were in the growth mindset group said, I want to see all the exams of those who did better than I did, because that's my chance to learn something. Those students who were in the fixed mindset group said, no, I want to see all of those who didn't do as well, because then I'll feel better. I'll feel better by comparing myself to those people who didn't do as well as I did. Phase 5, we're going to go give them another easy test, just like the one in the beginning. They should all do well, shouldn't they? But the results showed that by going through this difficult struggle, by seeing something they couldn't handle, by having to tell themselves a story, by listening to the voices in their head, they got new versions of themselves. And those who were in the growth group did grow. They got better by going through that experience. Their scores improved by 30%. Whereas those who were in the fixed mindset, they really talked themselves into being not as good. The little voices in their heads said, you're not as smart as you think you are. And by golly, this test proved they were right. One last phase, they said, we're going to do this experiment again, and we'd like you to give some advice to the children who are going to follow you. What would you tell them about this experience? And what they saw was those children who were in the growth mindset group were also coaching and helping the students in the future by telling them, you're going to take this really difficult test. It's going to be so hard. But don't be discouraged. Take your time. Slow down. Think about it. If you have trouble, you could ask for help. They were giving them some recommendations to help them be better. Just as they had coached themselves, they were coaching those children in the future. Well, the children in the fixed mindset group said, you know, you're going to take a really difficult test. You probably won't do very well. That's just the way it is. You know, a lot of people are not very smart, so you could expect not to do very well. They told those students in the future exactly what they had told themselves. No hope, no coaching, no belief in growth, a belief that you have it or you don't. They also offered the children a chance to share the scores on their test. And what they saw was those children who were in the fixed mindset group, 40% of them lied about their scores. Another characteristic of those who hold the fixed mindset is you want to look good, and sometimes that means you might have to distort what you have done or what you can do or what you will do because you want to look good. This is from the research of Carol Dweck. She wrote an interesting book called Mindset, and I just happen to have 2 copies. So if you come up afterwards, I'll be here all day, and ask me a really interesting question, I might give you a book. We'll see. I know. Wait, let's take a poll. How many of you still read real books? Look at that. Well, no wonder you're so smart. Look at that. Indeed. Is that an Iowa thing? You just readers. I know most people don't have time to read real books anymore. So those of you who raised your hands earlier who say, I have children or I have grandchildren, you should definitely read the New York Magazine article, How Not to Talk to Your Kids. If you can't find that, or if now they're charging for it, I will be happy to send it to you. Just send me some email. If you can't find any of those other articles, I'll be happy to send those to you as well. So maybe you have time to read an article, and especially if you can read it online. I know when you don't have time to read a book. So here's what the research shows. And as I was going through Carol Dweck's book, I said, you know, the growth mindset, to me, that's really what Agile is all about. It's about growing. It's about learning. It's about maybe not always being perfect and doing well. It's about learning from mistakes and failure, getting fast feedback. That's exactly what Agile is all about. So I like to use Agile instead of growth. Here's a summary of the difference in those two mindsets. Those who hold the fixed mindset believe that intelligence or any ability is fixed. Well, it's like height. When you're born, your height has been determined by a set of hormones and genes. There's nothing, absolutely nothing you can do about it. Those who hold the growth or the Agile mindset believe, no, it's like a muscle. If you work it, it will grow. So I've already told you that I'm incredibly old. And when I was 30, the research said at 30, you are now on the downhill slope. Your brain is decaying. Your bones are wasting away. Your muscles are deteriorating, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're getting old at 30. The research now says that is wrong. The research now says if you work at it, if you keep learning, if you keep working those muscles, you can build neurons and neuronal connections. You can build muscle. You can build bone until you die. You never stop growing. So if we want the answer here, which is right, what does the evidence show? The answer is those who hold the growth or the Agile mindset, they are right. That is what the evidence shows. It is like a muscle. That doesn't mean you can be Einstein. That doesn't mean you can be Tiger Woods. What it means is you can be better tomorrow than you are today. You can learn. You can move forward. You can make improvement. That is the most hopeful message I think I have encountered in the course of my 77 years, is that you never stop getting better. The fixed mindset said, well, the goal is I want to look good, because if I look good, then everybody will think I have it. If I can't improve, the only way that I can show other people that I have it, to prove to others that I can do it, is by looking good. Whereas the goal for those who hold the Agile mindset is, I want to get better. I want to learn. I want to move forward. If there's a challenge, those who hold the fixed mindset say, no, thank you. I don't want to tackle the hard stuff. No, that's not for me. Whereas those who hold the Agile mindset say, yes, let me try it. I may not be very good in the beginning, but I want to try that difficult thing. Let me have a chance. Failure for someone with a fixed mindset means I am a failure. So I avoid that at all costs. Failure for someone with the Agile mindset is just a message. It says, here's where you need to work harder. Here's where you need to improve. Okay, you didn't do well. That's all right. You're just learning. It's data. Effort means you don't have it for those in the fixed mindset. If you have to work hard at it, well, that means you're not a natural talent. For those with the Agile mindset, effort is how it happens. The work is how you get better. And then finally, those with a fixed mindset, if they have to do something difficult, they fall apart, helpless in the face of failure. Those with the Agile mindset, on the other hand, have a quality that I love. It's called resilience. Okay, we're going to bounce back. Okay, we had some problems here, but we're going to recover. Okay, I didn't do very well the first time around, but next time, I'm going to learn from that. That should be your watchword. What can we learn from that? That's what a retrospective is all about. What can we learn from that? How can we get better? We know that this is not only something that impacts you, but it impacts how you treat others. If you believe that intelligence or qualities or attributes are fixed, that not only affects how you think about yourself, but now you judge others. We know that we all do that. We all stereotype others. We are hardwired to do that. It's a cognitive bias, and there is nothing we can do about it. What we know is that the difference between those who hold the fixed mindset and those who hold the Agile mindset is that we don't hold those stereotypes as tightly, and we are more open to learning about the abilities of others. Those with a fixed mindset, on the other hand, once they have judged, once they have labeled, once they have already decided who has it and who doesn't, they hold those stereotypes ever closer. So I've already said I thought there was a big connection here between Agile software development and the mindset, but there's another piece of this that I think is crucial, and it has to do with bright little girls. We know that the numbers now for women in tech are at an all-time low. Why are we losing those bright little girls? I get asked that question all the time. I don't know how many panel discussions where they say, well, Linda, how did you stay with tech all this time? Yes, I came to computer science late, but I started out as a chemist. So I have always been technical. Why did you stay there? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But I do now think I know why we're losing all those bright little girls who might go into tech. The research shows that bright little girls in the beginning do really well in all areas in school. They're much better at communication, at understanding what their teachers and their parents want them to do, and they do it. They do well in the early grades, in all the fields, in English, in math, in science. In fact, they are perfect. In the 1970s, there was a plague on the horizon. It was called the Self-Esteem Movement. And it said you, especially talking to bright little girls, should build up their self-esteem. You should tell them, oh, you can do anything. Because they saw evidence that those who succeeded, those who did well in life, in any area, had high self-esteem. So they thought, therefore, that self-esteem drives success. And what they didn't understand, even now, decades later, is they had it backwards. Success drives self-esteem. And in fact, if you focus on self-esteem, you're going to get in the way of success, especially for women. So if you are telling your bright little girl, oh, you can do anything, will you please stop? You're getting in her way. Because she's going to do all right in the beginning. Sure. But then all of a sudden, the topics in school start to get more difficult. Not just for the girls, but also for the boys. And they say, oh, well, I'm not doing as well here, so maybe this isn't for me. And since they have never really had to struggle or work hard because it was pretty easy for them, the message they got was, oh, I should not go into those areas. I should avoid them. Let me go over here where I feel like it's better for me. It's easier for me. And we lose them. We lose that talent. We lose that different point of view. We know that diverse teams are better, are more innovative, are more creative. We cannot afford to throw away 50% of the population. And that's exactly what we're doing. So stop telling them, oh, you're so smart. Oh, you're so pretty. Oh, you're so talented. Oh, you can do anything. Stop that. Stop that. Well, wait a minute, Linda. What about bright little boys? Do you have any bright little boys as well as bright little girls? Does this look familiar? Does this look like an Agile project to you? Bright little boys are always getting into trouble. And the brighter they are, the more trouble they can create. And their teachers and their parents are not telling them, oh, you're perfect. They're telling them, look at this homework. What a mess. You're going to have to do this over again. Wait a minute. Don't look at me when I'm talking to you. Pay attention. Why can't you sit still when I'm talking to you? Why can't you be more like your sister? Bright little boys from the beginning run into challenges and difficulties. It's never easy. They're never perfect. People are always telling them, do it over again. You can do better than this. Wait, this is what my father told me. Is this the best you can do? Maybe you should do it over again. You'll get better. Let me hear you practice that piano piece. Let me see you practice that baseball swing. It's all about practice. That's what we tell little boys. Get out there and do it better. We're giving them Agile messages all the time. When Carol Dweck has looked at these two groups of children, what she has found is that bright little girls are the most fixed on the planet. Bright little boys, on the other hand, the most agile on the planet. They're used to challenge. It doesn't deter them when the hard stuff comes along. They just keep on going. They fall down. They get back up. We need to do a better job with our children, especially those bright little girls. Organizations can also hold a mindset. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Enron Scandal. Is that familiar? Good, okay. So this is a picture of Ken Lay as it's his mug shot. Ken Lay was one of the executives of Enron. They prided themselves on, well, they were beyond fixed. It was the smartest guys in the room. That's what they were all about. We want to hire the best. I've always wondered about that. How do you know who the best is? How do you measure that? Well, for Enron, it was Harvard MBA. You got to be in the top 10%. And I say, well, that's okay for this year. Now, what about next year? You hire the top Harvard MBAs, the top 10, well, are they better than the ones you already hired last year? How do you compare the best against the best? How does that work exactly? And they would say, well, we have a process. It's called rank and yank. We compare constantly. And then we fire the lower percent. It varies from year to year, sometimes 10%, sometimes 15%. We just fire the people at the bottom. What kind of work environment do you suppose that would be like? I've just dragged you through a lot of experimental evidence that shows when you put people in a fixed mindset, and that's what was happening here, they will do all kinds of things to look good. They will cheat, lie, and steal to look good. And that's exactly what happened here, including sabotage. If I make your project look bad, then mine will look better. Imagine a whole corporation of people who are out to look good, so that when the rank and yank process comes along, they won't be in that lower percentage and won't get fired. What kind of environment would that be like? No wonder. No wonder. My example, and it's been studied by so many business schools, my example of an agile or growth mindset is Southwest Airlines. I'm happy to say that's the airlines I took coming here yesterday, Southwest. They don't look for the best, they look for attitude. They are about learning. And when they hire those people, they say, we want you to get better. We want you to come up with ideas. We want you to help us get better. Is it a perfect company? No. Is it a company that tries to learn? Yes. That's what we want. Agile mindset. We know that managers have a mindset. I have never been a manager, but I pay attention to the research about it. And the research shows that if you are a manager and you have a new hire coming in the door, it takes you about 3 days, and then you decide. Even before you've seen real performance ratings, you have already decided who has it and who doesn't. Well, that seemed a little extreme to me. So I thought, well, I'll just ask a friend of mine who's a manager. So I said to my friend Dave, is this right? You know, after a few days, you have already made up your minds. You already think you know who's a good guy and who's not. Can it happen for you that quickly? And he said, well, Linda, I don't know, 3 days, but he said, well, here's what I do know. We're always right. Well, of course they are. Because as soon as a manager has already decided, I know who the good guys are. Do you think that would affect how he treats those people? What he sees in what they do? Would that change for that person how they behave, since they are going to kind of know that, oh, he thinks I'm one of the good guys? Is that going to affect their behavior? Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, what the manager is doing is creating reality. He's going to create a reality that supports his point of view. So if you haven't read this research and you are a manager or you're thinking about being a manager, please, if you can't find those online, I'll be happy to send them to you. We know the power of the fixed mindset in managers can change everything for teams, because teams also have a mindset. Teams can believe we have it. That's not just a work team, that's also a team in a family or a marriage. We are perfect. We know how this works. And so when things go wrong, we get discouraged and think, oh, well, maybe we don't have it after all. That's nonsense. We know there are no perfect people and there are no perfect teams. It's all facing challenges and struggles and getting better. There was a very famous experiment done in 1963 with rats. The graduate students were trying to teach these rats to run a maze. That was the goal for the rats. Make it to the end of the maze, and then you would get a treat. So one day, they gave the graduate students some cages, and they said, well, these rats are very special. These rats are so smart that they should be able to run this maze twice as fast, at least, as the ordinary rats we've been working with. So they gave them to the graduate students, and they went away and they said, let us know how it works out with these new special rats. And sure enough, when they came back, they found that the new smart rats, they were faster, they were better. Well, they could run that maze at least twice as fast as the old ordinary rats. Wow, super rats. And then the researchers told the graduate students something very surprising. They said, you know, these real super rats that we just gave you are really just the same as the old rats. So how was it that they were able to perform so much better? It was the belief that the graduate students had that these were smarter, that these were better. If we can do that with rats, what are we doing? What are we doing to our teens? What are we doing to our children? So these same researchers did an experiment with children. They gave them an IQ test. They told the teacher, you know, now some of these students have real promise. They have super high IQs. We don't want to tell them. We don't want to tell these students that they have these abilities, that they're super children. But, you know, you're going to have them in your class. And we'll come back at the end of the year and we'll see how they did. And sure enough, those students that the teachers were told had done so well on the IQ test, they did amazingly better. They did. They were performing so well. And then, of course, the punchline, the researchers said, there was no IQ test. These children that did so well, not any better than the others, we just picked them at random. We can do that with rats. We can do that with children. How we treat them and what we expect. You're not going to have time to read this, but it's a quote from a famous physicist who said, this is what we teach children. This is what we teach graduate students, that there is an answer and it's fixed, and you find it. And then we turn them loose in the real world, and there are problems out there that nobody can solve, and they have no idea how to deal with it. We haven't helped them discover. We haven't helped them learn. We haven't helped them learn how to be agile. Well, the good news is that at the end of the day, yes, you feel that you have some traits that are fixed and some that are agile, but we can all change. In fact, we can be agile about that mindset. And I promised you that I would tell you how they separated the young children in the experiment. Are you awake enough to remember that? It was phase 1. They gave all the children a test, and then they put 50% of them in one group and 50% in another group. But I didn't tell you how they did that. Do you remember that? Are you still out there? Hello? Yes, very good. Okay, so here's how they did it. They gave all the children an easy test, and then one by one, they had randomly selected who was going to be in the fixed group and who was going to be in the agile or the growth group. So those who were in the fixed group, they went up to them and they said, here's your test. You did really well. You must be smart. Which group was that? Fixed. To the other group, they said, well, here's your test. You did really well. You must have worked hard. Which group was that? The Agile or growth. And that's all they did. That's all they did. Oh, you must be smart. Oh, you must have worked hard. That's all they did. Well, we saw the results. Statistically significant. The first time that experiment was run, the researchers said, we never get results like this. These were results beyond what we had expected, and all we did was a very small manipulation. If you can create, at least for the sake of the experiment, which went on for several hours, if you can create a change in mindset by just saying one simple thing, what are we doing day after day? Talking to our children and talking to each other, putting each other into one mindset or another. And of course, what Carol Dweck is looking at now are the children who have not been told, oh, you're so smart. They're looking at the children who have been told from the get-go, you are stupid. You'll never make it. It's a different kind of fixed, because those children believe it. And in the training and classes and research that Carol Dweck and her graduate students are doing with these children now, one of them came up and said, finally, you mean I don't have to be stupid? A child. So talk about effort. Talk about the process. When your child comes home from school or your grandchild comes home from school and you say, oh, look at that. Well, you must have worked hard. You've been practicing. I know, I can see your drawings, your writing, your arithmetic, whatever it is. I can see you're getting better. Talk about the work. Talk about the process. One of my heroes was born the same year I was. 1942. And in the beginning, he was definitely fixed mindset. He was a genius. And he said, right up to the time I finished my graduate work, he said it was really something that you didn't talk about. If you had to work at it, well, that was, you didn't want to let anybody know. You wanted everybody to think that you had it, that you were smart. And if you had to work at those problems, or the struggle with those challenges, well, that was clear indication that you didn't have it. So he never talked about work. And after his diagnosis with ALS, he said, I discovered the joy. I discovered the joy of working. How good it was to struggle. Not only mentally, but physically. Had a brief conversation with somebody who worked with him, who said it was agonizingly slow to communicate, letter by letter, word by word, to make up a sentence. But Stephen was so determined, and he worked so hard, right up to the end. What an amazing guy. So the first time I gave this talk, I had a request. I said, Linda, can you give us some really concrete examples? What can I say to my children? So here it is. You'll have the slides. Here's a whole pile of stuff you can tell your kids. And then go out and read about classrooms that are now starting to help children have a growth mindset. This is a picture of a classroom in Oregon where they give pairs, they're working in pairs of children, things that cannot be done. It's impossible. And in a brief conversation, the teacher will say, you know, this is going to be a lot of steps. Most of you are not going to do very well. We have to believe that all students can learn. Everybody's going to struggle. We have to want everybody to have this opportunity. Do you want my brain to grow, or do you want your brain to grow? The emphasis is shifting. I think it's a good thing. I just read about this, so it's a brand new slide. This is the longest longitudinal study of humans ever conducted. the Harvard Grant study found that professional success in life, which is what we want for our kids, comes from having done chores. That's work. And the earlier they start, the better. I love that. So how do you talk to other adults? Suppose you know a spouse or a colleague who is struggling with difficulties and is saying, I can't do it. I must be stupid. Normally, when someone like that comes to us, we argue with them and we say, no, you're smart. And what are we doing? We're putting them in that fixed mindset box and locking the lid tight shut. No, you want to talk about the work. Can you think of a time in the past when you had a struggle and you overcame it? Do you remember a story about something like that? Let's try to remember what you did. What were the steps? What kinds of things can you do? What are the process? What's the process for recovering from failure? And then for yourself, when you start saying, I can't do it, I'm too old to go back to graduate school, what are some things that you can tell yourself? So this is what Agile is all about. We say these things all the time. Fail early, fail often. Progress is more important than perfection. Fail fast, learn constantly. Failure is an option. Without failure, how can learning happen? If you want to look at an agile company, in fact, it is my example of the most agile company on the planet. Go to Menlo Innovations and read what Rich Sheridan, who is the CEO and co-founder, has said. He says make mistakes faster. He also has a new book out called Joy. I love Rich. And finally, Kent Beck. Everybody knows Kent Beck. He said perfect. That's a verb. Perfect, not perfect. I think Agile is agile. And I'm going to close with one of my favorite quotes from an Irish poet. Ever tried, ever failed. No matter, try again. Fail again. Fail better. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you.